I think we're good to go. Anyway. So if you click these two links, these are links that were put together by Lamb. They are clustered by grade and by teacher. Okay, but you do have to make sure that you're on the appropriate tab. Remember I talked about yesterday, you gotta click on the math tab. This one is the growth report, yeah. So this one goes over where they were in 7th grade, or that's something that probably are repeating. But where they were at the spring 2023 start, and then where their projected levels were for the entry.
They got 5th grade for us? Or 5th grade?
Yes, for you guys, when you go down to 6th grade. No, they're sorted by teachers. I had her go in, she went in this morning and did that for you guys. So I think it's in alphabetical order though by teacher.
Oh, okay. Oh, she got the tabs at the bottom for
No, they're not tabbed out. It's still all together, and then your clusters are grouped in together.
Oh, okay.
Not who your students are. And it's even done by period. So you're 5th and 6th.
Oh, they do got our teeth on
Yeah,
that. Okay.
Is that shared with us?
Yes, so
Okay.
this is on the agenda. This is the first link in the agenda. Okay, and so you can kind of see where your kids are. And then even on the second one as well, it's not necessarily any comparison. It's just giving you kind of pretty much the information you would be getting out of the CRS. It tells you, again, it's grouped the same way by teacher. It tells you what the predicted star performance level would be based on their performance on the fall entry. It also tells you which form they were given, whether they were on a low test, a medium test, or a high test. And then it goes also through each category. Okay, it tells you whether they were under, whether they were near, or I think the other one is on target.
Under, near, above.
Above. There we go. I think it's it, under, near, or above. And that's based on their performance in each of the reporting categories, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Right? Questions on those two?
Which one? Where do you find out? That on?
It's the second.
It's on the agenda.
Oh,
Second
that's not the
one.
growth. That's the student score?
Yes, this is the student score report. And then underneath that, I did go ahead and give the instructions of how you can get to your CRS. You go to texasassessment.gov, you'll click on educators, and then go into the CRS. You are gonna have, if this is your first time going in, you're gonna have to get a new password.
Yeah.
It'll just click first time login. I think it's something that it says towards the bottom, and then you have to reset your password. It'll send you an email to do the reset.
And what is this data?
This
I was on the growth.
This is just your student. So this is each individualized student, what their predicted star performance was based on their performance that they just done on the fall interim. But then it also goes into your category 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Oh, how they did in those categories.
Correct. And it tells you which form they were on. If they get the low test, the medium test, or the high test. And then what they are basically, how many they got correct out of each of those reporting categories. And then this section tells you if they were under target, near target, or above target for each of those categories. And it's pretty much the same information that you'll be getting out of the CRS if you were to get the individualized reports for each kid.
Okay.
It'll tell you the same, pretty much the same thing. It's just all combined in one, so when you don't have to keep scrolling to find each individual kid on the CRS.
Can this be printed out?
Yeah.
I want to keep going in here. I can copy of it.
Yeah, and you can, cause this is view only, you may have to snip it and then like snip your section, cause it'll probably print all of it.
Ah, okay, yeah.
Snip your section out and then you can
Like,
probably.
I was looking at it, like, it's not even, maybe, I'm in it. Make it, see, what I do is I make a copy of her document and then I just cut everything that's not mine out.
There you go. And then again, you can definitely.
Carlos Guy? Who had him? Carlos Gates, G-A-Y.
I only have.
Last year,
Carlos.
Carlos Gates.
Lucky if I remember their first name, I do not remember their last names.
I was just asking for season 7th grade, he's predicting the master. I was hoping it wasn't that Carlos with the flat top. He looked
No,
like
that was-
African American, but he's Spanish. Oh, he's Hispanic.
That's Lawson's kid.
You had him last year? I
Carlos?
thought Johnson, you had him.
Carlos Gates.
No, the other Carlos with
The one that you currently have. You currently have him.
No, he's in Lugo right now. This guy's in
No, that
Lugo.
was Sam.
He's 7th grade.
Oh,
This
okay,
guy
okay,
Lugo.
I got you.
I had a Carlos too though.
Gaten.
I had
Yeah, but the
Gaten. I
name
had
is that
Flores.
name? That boy on master level in the name.
He
She had
did
a beginning
Flores.
group, didn't she?
I'm saying.
About one of y'all. I know it ain't that one, but it can't be. That's slack. No, he ain't.
I mean, he predicted to be great.
We're
but
recording
I
that.
mean,
Who, Carlos?
yes,
He predicted to do what?
he great.
No, he guessed.
Trejo?
No, he guessed.
Well, this is his second time around.
He ever say he better?
He didn't learn it last year. He didn't learn it last year.
He can answer more questions in class than anybody, because you should already know this.
Yeah, he should. You know.
All right, so we were left off yesterday on equal groups, multiplying and dividing integers. Okay, we talked about your modeling of two-color counters, number lines, still continuing with that concept. Here they are focusing these questions on the sign of a product resulting from the multiplication of two positives, two negatives, and one of each. And then in here, they're also having to apply their knowledge to determine the sign of products that result from multiplying 3 or more integers. So taking a look at our essential ideas, we kind of talked about this yesterday as well, just kind of identifying where these things are so that we're making sure that we're ensuring that this is what the students are walking away with. All right, so we looked at the very first one, or the first activity, because we're doing all of it. Right, the getting started is just a basic, going over the addition, right? Repeated addition and making the connection for the students between what they have already done, what they should know, and what that's going to look like now. The only difference is now the repeated addition has the negative numbers because you've introduced that to them at this point, okay? So we're going in and looking at, we talked about 5.1, the beginning of 5.1, and the models that they are starting them with, the worked examples that they're giving them, right? And them having to explain how or why it illustrates. And what is the terms that we say we're taking, that we're ensuring the kids understand when it comes to the math of this? What are we changing? If 3 times 4, what should the kids know that actually means?
Three groups of
3
4.
groups of 4, right? So they're having to, or we're having to ensure that they're understanding that we're basically putting in 3 groups of 4, right? And then it also goes into the opposite of that. We have 2 positives, and then the next example goes into a positive and a negative. Okay, where we're doing 3 groups of -4. This is Ms. Davis. Yes. Sure.
Where?
Oh, no. Okay. And then we have 4 groups of -3.
What's up?
Alright, again, we talked about this on yesterday. It's also giving them that option of repeated addition and showing what that would actually look
Oh,
like.
are you working out as 504? Yeah, add it to it, please.
Now,
Added
coming
really
down here, this is kind of where we stopped with the -3 times -4. We want the opposite of 3 groups of -4. Okay, which ultimately means we want the opposite of -4, changing these into positives and doing the same thing on the number line. And we talked about this example. So that's what we left off on yesterday. Make sure I'm on the right spot. There was, no, that's the next section. Questions to ask, comes in when we get to numbers 5 and 7. 5 through 7 rather. Okay, is there a way that you can glance at the number sentence and know the sign of the product? Is there a way that I can just take a look at the number sentence and know what the sign is going to be?
It should be.
At this point, we talked about the rules
Mm-hmm.
of, I'm gonna rediscuss.
So this is a question that we can pose to the students, right?
Yeah.
Can you glance at this number sentence and know the sign of the product?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the first questions on your facilitation notes. What answers do we want the kids to come up with though? What should they be able to say?
They should be able to say the rule of a negative times a negative is a positive.
Okay,
So if they see two negatives, they know that creates a positive.
There's different signs, you know, it's gonna feel negative.
There it is.
okay, at first glance, they should be able to identify what types of numbers we have and already know what my answer is going to be or the sign of my product is going to be. Okay,
Number 6 is in the video.
Yes.
okay,
So I had them just follow along the video and copy and fill in that table.
Okay.
With the video.
Oh, okay.
So did you skip down or did you just where you started? Did you skip?
Now, once we got to that, we went past the video, but we were discussing it as the video was going on. I would pause it, let them copy and discuss it.
that was my question. Where did you place watching the video?
We did at the beginning of the lesson.
Okay,
So then she got, and they got 2 parts. That's in part 1.
okay,
So we kind of, when she got there, I told them to turn to that page.
Okay.
I paused it and we discussed it. So when I got to that part of the lesson, we kind of just moved on past that, since we already had discussed it at the beginning. So when we did that, we got back to the other part, the beginning part, you were saying, you know, the opposite of.
Correct.
it was
They
like,
already
oh,
had it.
They had it.
exactly.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things that sometimes are beneficial. I told you, you don't necessarily have to go in a specific order. If you're using the video and you already get into this part, you can definitely set them up to do this part first. And then again, like I said, that should have been a good baseline for them to get started with the other parts of the lesson to where you probably didn't have to do as much guiding or heavy lifting for them. Right? Because not only are you giving them that description and that changing of the words of what it actually means, the 3 groups of 5, the opposite of 3 groups of positive 5, and you're giving them the sentence here, which is also connected in the beginning as well.
Mhm.
Okay. And then here is just a continuation of this. Again, we're talking about fact families. This entire time with these lessons, they've been using fact families, same products or same values, but just changing out what the numbers looking like. With these, one is positive, one is negative, negative, positive, and switching them out, and so on and so forth. Now, one thing that I did highlight here too as a question to ask, because it asks them to do either one. You're either doing the number line or the 2-color counter model. It has, did you use the 2-color counter method or the number line method to compute your products of the 2 images, and have some discussion around that, right? Don't force them into one way or the other. You've exposed them to both, right? We've talked about number lines. We've talked about 2-color counters. At this point, let them use what works best for them, and then we have a discussion about that.
I have whoever had the color counters in my room, I got from David, so we gotta get to it. I have. We're finished with it. So.
Okay.
I just break that.
Any questions on 5.1? Is 5.1 highlighting any of the essential ideas? Going back, taking a look at anything in 5.1.
For the first question, first item, model using number line or 2-color.
Absolutely. Can be modeled using a number line or 2-color counters. We're addressing that essential idea.
Those are the first four bullets.
The product that results from multiplying 2 positives is always positive. Multiplying 2 negatives is always positive. Multiplying,
Those are
Yeah,
all
those are
those 5.1.
5.1.
Except for the last.
Yeah.
Now, I think 5.2 talks about the odd and even numbers.
right.
Yeah.
But did we talk about odd and even numbers in 5.1 though?
No,
I don't think we've got
as I
that.
say, I think that's 5.2.
Right, so we've, so far within 5.1, we should have already started addressing these first 4, right?
Yeah.
We should be assessing, are our kids able to understand that 2 positives is always positive, 2 negatives is always positive, and then a negative and a positive is always negative? Can they understand that at the end of 5.1? Right? So then we go into 5.2. And in 5.2, they're describing patterns, right? And the purpose of this lesson is having them to use those patterns to create that algorithm, right? Having them to use the patterns that they are finding or describing to create the algorithm. So when we go down, right, they're analyzing the products, the sequence of products with 4. Okay, and what are we noticing about the products as the numbers are multiplied by 4 decrease? Okay, continuing that pattern, but now we're going into the negative sector. Now, knowing that in 5.1 we've addressed that, what happens with the positive and the negative, they should be able to answer and understand that these 3, A, B, and C, should come out to the same value, same absolute value, but a negative number, or the opposite.
In mine, some of them, not all of them, they was going, looking at the products,
Okay,
they was going 0 to 20. And they was like, oh, it's increasing by 4. So no, we started from the first
From
number
20.
sentence
right,
to the bottom.
Okay.
And some did, my ESL days. So they were looking at it from bottom to top.
okay,
I said, yeah, we going bottom to top, okay,
Because
we
always
are
tell them
increasing by 4.
we always tell them to start at 0,
You
so
always
they
start
started at 0.
exactly.
This is
So I
true.
couldn't be mad at
You couldn't be mad at them.
it.
this is true.
And I said, okay, yeah, you are increasing if we do that, but we going from
Right.
top to bottom, then the product is decreasing. I don't know if you able to do that, but I know mine did that this morning.
Okay. Anything that we need to highlight within question 1, 2, and 3 within this first section?
Yeah, question 1, they were also the number that's being multiplied by 4. I had to circle that column. I circled all those numbers. No, just that column is being multiplied by 4. Yeah, I circled that in one color, and I circled the products in another color. Because they were like, when they were reading that, what pattern do you notice in the products as the numbers multiplied by 4 decrease? I had to show them that the numbers being multiplied is decreasing, along with the product also.
Okay.
They were getting confused with that question.
Okay. Anybody else? Because when you get down to 3, it's asking them to describe the pattern that is noticed now in the new products. Okay. So the products are decreasing by 4 each time in number 1. And then we get into number 2 and we have that -4, we have a -8, and we have this -12. And it wants them to describe the pattern that they noticed in the new products. Which again should be saying that the product is for less than the previous. Now, if we're doing this with them, right?
They do by themselves.
The next one they should be able to do by themselves. Now, the only thing is now we're having the -5. Would you want to do the -5 by themselves or the 4 by themselves?
Challenged them with that one.
First one, just to see.
Say that again?
I wanted to see if they could figure it out.
Okay.
Then it's,
Okay, you do the -5 with it. What about you, Sam? What do you think?
I just wrote something down and I forgot what I was gonna say. I think that they might struggle for the 4s, so I kind of want to do that with them so that they can be successful with the 5s.
Okay.
I'm hoping that they might see, because we've been doing, you have the number lines and the reflecting stuff, they might see that it reflects. But this, now I remember what I was gonna say. Struggling with the number, it technically is bigger, but they need to know that the bigger number when it's negative is smaller.
Correct.
And so might have already started, because I'm a little bit behind. They think -12 is bigger than -4. So making sure that leading up into this, they understand that negatives are farther away from 0. But I want them to be able to see that that's gonna happen. When you go negative, they're gonna be bigger, but technically they're smaller.
Right. I agree. I think Going in, doing the 4, the -5 is the introduction to them. Like, this is their first time really working with -5, so really kind of assessing their level of mastery of what is new to them would be them having to understand and describe these patterns with the -5 versus the +4. If we can do the conversations, the discussion, the examples with them, if we're guiding them in some aspect, it should be on the stuff that they already know how to do, and then having them critically think and problem solve their way through the -5. Right? Now, one thing in here I highlighted was to what makes more sense to you, the patterns in this particular activity or the repeated addition. Just because kind of assessing their ability of what we're giving them new, or are they more comfortable with what's more common to them, what's more familiar. The repeated addition should be more familiar for them, and if they're okay with that, let them know that that's fine. Right? That the repeated addition is absolutely okay. We're not forcing them to do anything, but they have to be exposed to both, right? Are you capable of understanding these patterns that are here, or are you more familiar and comfortable with the repeated addition? Whichever way works, letting them know that either way should still get them to the same answer.
She wanted Christmas bells. I gave her Christmas bells.
Now, going in here, 6 through 9, absolutely. Okay. Describing the signs of the product of two integers.
Now some, let them do it on their own too. By the time you get to that, they should know.
Right. Because again, we already discussed this is part of that essential idea, that top part. We've already talked about it a bit in 5.1. Here we are again in 5.2. Right? Slightly showing it a different way though. Right? It's same thing, but shown differently.
They added that 0.
Correct.
That's the one.
What do we think about that? With them having to do the 1 and 0.
I'm gonna tell them to go back to the,
Was the absolute value we talked about?
we talked about absolute value.
Rational numbers, we, that
Mhm.
0.
Automatically, they should know.
They should, and they did. I was hoping I was gonna catch somebody.
Original
Ah.
multiplication, like when you learn multiplication, you know any number times
0 and 0.
Always be 0.
And same thing with
Yep.
division, you know. I was hoping they gonna send me negative or positive 0. I was
I
throw something
hope
at
not.
Anybody
them. I was
say
gonna
that.
throw something
I hope not.
I don't think I was gonna catch somebody. Nobody did. I was okay, y'all win your game today.
That's when I'm whispering somebody's ear and tell them to get it wrong.
There we
Keep
go.
going up. C.
There we go. And that,
Yeah.
Oh
where
my
does-
God.
but what is C? Go back to your essential ideas. What essential idea are we now hitting?
That's second to last one.
The odd and even number.
The odds and evens.
Okay, them understanding having an odd number of negative integers, having an even number of negative integers. Right, this is their first time that we're going to expose them to that. Okay, them understanding that the product that results from multiplying an odd number of negatives is going to be always negative. Them having the understanding that multiplying an even number of negative integers is always going to be positive. Okay, it starts them there in C. Okay, how did you determine what sign to use when multiplying 3 integers? A good question to ask, right? Because they've been doing 2 integers. They've had that previously. How did we determine? Can we look at first glance and determine the sign of our answer when we have these 2 integers? Can you do that here? Is it a way for you to, at first glance, identify and know what your product is going to be, positive or negative, when we have multiple integers being multiplied together? And then we continue that work with 9C into 10. Okay, describe the sign of each product and how you know when we have a product of 3 negatives, of 4 negatives, 7 negatives, and then 10. And notice out here, I kind of, on my notes, kind of put a cloud around here and create some examples to test it out, right? What if I have -4 times -3 times -2? What will my product be? Right? Test out having 4 negatives. What if I had -3 times -7 times -5 times -1? Okay. Questions on that?
Remember TikTok, I saw a lady trying to get her kids to remember these, or at least the positive versus negative.
Mhm.
So negative times a negative is positive. Two
Right.
ugly people have pretty babies.
I know somebody that does use that. Now, in here though, it does talk about a misconception in your TIG, that students may confuse the rules regarding signs for when they multiply an even number of negative numbers and when they add an even number of negative numbers. Alright, it's saying to use a number line to help them to differentiate. Is there another method that can possibly be used to address that?
Also, like for instance, that A, the product of 3 negative, 44, 7, 10. Earlier, we talked about they have the same sign, they're gonna be positive.
Okay,
So when they first did it, they were like, okay, we got 3 negative here, I put -2 times -2 times -2.
Uh-huh.
They looked at that like, oh, it's positive 8, because all the signs are the same.
correct,
I said, no, break it in parts.
yeah,
Do -2 times -2 first,
yes,
then multiply the second -2.
right,
Then they were like, okay, but at first they were like, oh, automatically that's positive because
Right.
all of them are negative. So,
right.
well, yeah, I had to like, okay,
And that goes into the conversation about having an odd and even number. If I had 4 -2s and multiplying it, would that give me an automatic positive? Absolutely, because I have an even number to distribute and create that negative times negative, negative times a negative. Whereas when I have those odd numbers, I have a negative times a negative, which creates a positive, and I'm taking that positive times a negative. Here, they had a differentiation strategy in here that could possibly be used, just kind of highlighting it for you guys. To assist all students in making sense of the rules, have them to design posters here and present them to the class, divide the students up into groups and create those posters, making sense of one of the cases. And even if it's not just with 10, it even talked about them doing the positive times a negative, negative times a positive, and a negative times a negative. Require them to use all of the justifications learned, such as a 2-color counter method, the number line method, and even patterns. Okay, and they can present them, or you guys can use them as an anchor chart. Have a visual posted up in your class for the learning that took place with this particular activity. Tomorrow, I think we're all in the different spots. What lesson has everybody completed up to so far?
I finished my football today. But I started it today and I was able to finish it today. So tomorrow I'll be starting, I think, walk along.
I finished, 4 better than 1 today.
I'm starting on a walk around today.
Okay. I think I'm the furthest behind.
I'm on big stuff. That's why I
Yeah,
said
you're in your
that.
7th grade team. Okay. I need to, I'm gonna print your stuff out here next. Okay. All right. So tomorrow, we'll do a student work analysis from 4 is better than 1. Let's go with let's go with in 4-1. Just bring activity 4-1. It was 4 to 5. We'll focus in on here and here. Bring in 4 to 5 examples of activity 1.
It's 4 better than 1.
Yes, from 4 is better